Cloudy England. Yeah, nice mix. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We can go ahead and get started. Valker, if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so excited to talk to everybody today. Just a couple of housekeeping slides and house rules before we get going. For those that have attended previous user groups and deep dives, you're probably used to some of these. First slide we're going to go through is just some house rules. All of these user groups are meant to be a safe space to ensure we can all learn and network and problem solve together. So it's not really for sales, no self-promotion or pitching. If somebody is sharing something, one of their experiences, don't necessarily go share that with others without their consent and permission. We just want this to be a really great space people can come communicate and network together. Also, this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the YouTube channel. If you do not wish to participate in a live recorded session, you can watch the recording and drop at any time. And any questions you have can be sent to advocacy@adobe.com. So the recording will be shared out. And if you haven't already, make sure you sign up for this mug chapter, the deep dive chapter. That will ensure you get future meeting invites to your email and you won't miss out on any future and upcoming topics. There's a link in the deck to the deep dive homepage where you can sign up and become a member of the group if you're not already. So join the chapter and you'll be in the know of all the future events that are coming up. All right, and just a few slides on some other upcoming user groups. Some may be in your area, some virtual, but in the US, North America, here's a list of the virtual and in-person user groups that are coming up. So we've got a nice global group, as we can see in the chat from today. So some of these virtual user groups might be something you'd be interested in, or if you're in a couple of these local areas, there's in-person groups. So just a couple of lists here. To let you know what's coming up in case there's something that's of interest. And there's also a barcode you can scan, take you to the page so you can easily register for those. And on our next slide, we've got a list of our upcoming international user groups as well. Most of those are in person, but still a little virtual. So if any of those topics are interesting to you, or if you're in that area, it's a great opportunity to connect and network with others. And then we have a few slides. Adobe is encouraging reviews on their products on G2 and Trust Radius. So there's a couple of slides here with some barcodes you can scan to review Marketo on these platforms if you have time. And there's also a couple of slides if you're using AJO or if you're using the real-time CDP. It'd be great to get some reviews out on Trust Radius and G2. All right. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you guys to our wonderful speakers today. I'm Jenny Robertson. I'm going to be moderating the webinar. I'll be watching the chat for questions as we go along. And we'll try to answer as many questions as we go along the webinar today. If we get too many questions and time's running low, we might save questions for the end, but we'll do our best to get to questions as we go today. I lead the Atlanta Marketo user group. I'm a multi-year champion. Super excited to be here to help Balkar and Katja today. So Balkar and Katja, I'll kind of leave it to you guys to introduce yourselves, but not only tell us a little bit about you, but it'd be great, maybe something fun, not related to work, like what's your least favorite, most favorite food? And not on the slide, I do also have to mention we have Tarun here today from the Adobe side. He's here to also help questions on anything that may come up that maybe is more Adobe related that, you know, he's closer to than we are.
Yeah, let me take it from here. My name is Katja Keesom. I work in the Netherlands as a principal consultant for Chapman Wright, a consultancy firm specialized in marketing automation and particularly dedicated to working with Marketo. And I'm a second-year champ now, and also advisory board member for Adobe B2B customer journeys. And my favorite food, I would go in general pasta, and least favorite and it's different in different versions of English. Eggplant, aubergine, whatever you want to call it, not my thing.
Nice.
Thanks, Kaja. I'll go next. So I am a long time practitioner of Marketo, using Marketo since about 12 years now. Spent a lot of time at an agency. Now in-house at Here Technologies as marketing manager. And for favorite food, I'm basically an Indian vegetarian. So those kind of dishes suit me. And anything fun about me, um, I call it window shopping at Netflix. I spend like 15 minutes to find nothing and give up. So that's just about me. And I'm also a 2 times champion. Have been participating on user groups as well. It's for me. And go to the next slide for the outline.
All right, and just a little quick summary of what we're going to cover today. So Balcar is going to go through a little bit of an introduction around the email designer, what to expect from it, where to access it, why it's beneficial, pros and cons, all kinds of fun stuff there. He's going to go through how it works, what you need to know so you can start using the new email builder, how to leverage things like the AI assistant. And then Katja's going to go through migration strategies, give you insights on if you haven't migrated yet, how to migrate, considerations to think about as you're thinking of migrating and transitioning to the new email designer tool. And she'll go through some best practices and tips and tricks as well. And then has a slide with resources that you can go look into after or down the road as you're digging into the email designer yourself. And then whatever time we have at the end, if there's extra questions we haven't answered or more questions, we'll have some live Q&A. So let's dig in.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for the great introduction. And with that, let's start to talk about the new email designer. So I'm going to start to talk from where to access it. And so this is where we have it. You have this new label against it within the design studio. That's where you can find it. However, if you are not able to find it, it's likely because you have maybe not moved to the Adobe Identity Management System. The migration must be completed to be able to access the new editor. If you have not already moved to IMS, you will not be able to see this. So that is a prerequisite to access it. Quick comments on like what kind of roles it is suitable for. This designer definitely gives more power to more team members to contribute more to marketing campaigns, even without HTML experiences many cases. There are a couple of roles on screen you could see, like developers, of course, designers, but also marketing ops people, email marketers, campaign managers, and even content creators. There are more roles which can engage with the designer given its new kind of capabilities and more inclusive nature. And let's start by talking about how it works. And I'm going to cover a couple of key features. What is the nature of this designer? For one, it is a pretty marketer friendly designer tool. It is a drag and drop email designer, and you can design and edit emails from scratch, from templates through HTML import, and assemble components in very unique ways. There are options of coming more efficient authoring of workflows. And in addition to that, of course, you can always personalize your email content, deploy content from subject lines to copy and whatnot. So those are the first ones, and there are more. A big capability we like is also AI assistant, content accelerator. So it essentially allows you to generate variations of content based on different qualities you want to have. You may want to create a variation based on a different communication strategy. Maybe you want to make it look more exclusive, urgent. You can have a different tone. There are prompt libraries in it. Like there's a whole lot of stuff which lets you define the content quality or the variation based on different attributes like communication strategy or even brand guidelines, wherein you upload some brand assets and reference it for content style. So that's in there. That's another big feature of the designer. And of email content locking, where you can prevent unintentional edits. You can lock some of the combinations of structures and components. And it's good to ensure that brand elements are consistent, and they reduce rounds of QA and lock regulatory required content for governance and compliance. So that's a very quick overview of what kind of functionalities and capabilities we have in the new designer. And now I want to start by what does the old editor looks like, because it would be a good idea to just uh, compare it with what we have already in place. So right now we do have this kind of view. We all know that there are contents and modules, and if you look at the top, you have email settings where you can adjust the metadata of the email. And in this case, you have to edit the metadata within the editing experience, the from address or the from email address, reply to address, subject line. And so that's about the UI we have at present, which we call the old editor, versus the new editor, which looks a bit like this. It's moderner, it's modern, and instead of it's very different and it's very intuitive. Like we have a concept of structures and contents. You basically can drag drop a lot of structures, make unique combinations of structures to create a layout you want, and then you can drop your content blocks onto the structures to create any kind of designs you want. So that's like what new editor looks like. Also, previously we had on the left, you can see we have these templates. This is the inbuilt list of templates we have right now. We call it template picker. On the contrast, like the new one also has some inbuilt templates which are more modular, more new, and we call it sample templates. And again, that is one of the ways you can create an email. Like one of it is using the sample templates to get started on it. Another key difference is also editing the metadata. As I was just mentioning, the previous way is to click on the email setting within the editing experience, and which will open up this blue box, the dialog box, and then you can define the emails as operational, have the pre-headers, etc., etc. Versus the new editor, the snapshot on the right, where you have all this in a separate view in the right pane. You have your from name, from emails, and other details in this email itself are defined here. Just a quick review, like we talked about where you can find it. So you find it by going to the email new section on the left. You create that email as per the highlights, and this is a dialog box will fill up here. You need to name the email and you need to have a subject line before you even begin to create that email. So that is important. You can personalize it later on. But unlike the previous editor where you can get started without the subject line, it's not the case in this one. You have to have some subject line to get started. And of course, like after you create that, you get this kind of view wherein you first define the metadata. And that is again another difference, wherein you have to define this metadata as a first step before you go to the button called edit email content, where the actual editing of the email content happens. And again, like that is the difference here. If we go to the edit email content, you get the options, and you can select from a couple of sample templates. You can import your own HTML, and you can also design it from scratch. I'm going to take an example to design it from scratch in this case, because it gets the full access to visual editor capabilities versus HTML, where the functionalities of visual editors are a bit limited.
And
So
just
once,
really quickly, Valkar, the first question came in, and I just want to read it for everyone because maybe not everyone's looking at chat. But the first question came in and said, will we eventually have access to build folders within Design Studio for the new emails? And Tarun answered, yes, that is the plan. Can't do it right now, but you will be able to in the future.
okay. Cool. So continue, and so after we have this selection, this is the actual canvas where the actual content editing happens. As we can see, where we have like two key components. One is the structures, and the second is the contents. I think this is the most important concept here, because it's based entirely on this architecture, that you have to have a structure in place before you add the content. So structures are basically different sections, one on one column, two on two, n on n. You can get pretty creative with these options. And it's like defining a layout on or the wireframe of the design. And once you have it, you can drag and drop different types of content. Maybe you want to add text to any particular structure. You may want to add HTML, you may want to add buttons. So again, that's different type of contents which you can add to different type of structures.
And another question, Valkar, has come in. Are we able to import our current bespoke built templates into the new builder?
I think I can sort of comment on that because I've seen some good examples of that during Summit. Yes, you can already import HTML today, but there will be a full backward compatibility that in the new email designer you will be able to also work with your old email templates and your existing emails as well.
And do we have the ability to control how the column structures stack in mobile?
Yeah, that as well. You can, if you say I want to use a two-column structure, you can for the structure say, and it's the same applies for fragments that you can use within a structure to not stack on mobile. So there's a toggle for that.
Yeah. And then last one for now, is there a specific page dedicated to template tags?
Well, you mean in terms of variables? Tarun, correct me if I'm wrong, but variables will be working in a slightly different way, and when importing, you'll get a transitionary page where you can manage that.
Yeah. I think, Katya, can you give me more understanding on what is template tags?
Well, I can't. That's the question asker there.
Yeah, maybe we can have the conversation on chat. But yeah,
Yep.
means yeah, the
So
older
Mariano,
tags from the older template builder is not relevant as of now. This is a new template and email builder, and things are much more streamlined. Over to you, Belka.
And is there an ETA when the new email designer will be more backward compatible with older templates?
I do have a slide further down with the timing of several new features. So I think we may want to continue with the presentation and hold some of those questions and see what gets answered during the presentation as well. So I think everybody is now really getting stuck in.
Okay.
But let's see if we could get a few things answered already. in the normal flow.
All right, Bakker, back to you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think there are like Adobe has a couple of slides later on. I think by that time we might answer a couple of questions already. So back to structures and content. So just a slide here that these are the two big blocks, components and fragments. And we just talked about components, which are structures and contents. So that's what it looks like when you drag and drop it to the canvas. Structures are these ones, contents are these ones, and let's take a very rough example layout. Maybe I have a banner. I have another section followed by rich text, followed by to rich text and an image, followed by a CTA. So the idea here is to illustrate, like, if you have some kind of mock-up in your mind, then this kind of structure is something you would need. And adding that structure means that you will need to add different type of structures to the canvas, like somewhat like this, that you will add one-on-one across a couple of layers. And you may have like two on someone, where you have, on one side there is text, one side there is image, and later on you start to add different type of contents onto the structure. So that's basically how you start to build the email. And once you start doing it, it starts to look a bit like this. You add some content, you add some image, and when you add the image content, you can use your existing assets, or you can import media. And there's also a right pane where you have more settings and options to edit the style of the content. For example, in text, these kind of options appear when you select text, and maybe you want to change the background color, font family, text alignment, border radius, and etc. etc. Basically, all of the contents do come with the options to modify their styling, and that style edits can happen on the right side of the pane, which appears once you select the content. We do create. We are at this point, like when you're creating the content, adding it on the stuff, like you might have some options, some outputs which you might want to save. For example, if you are having a two-on-two column section where you want to add some text, and on the right you want to add some kind of image, you might not want to reinvent that field uh, when you are creating it again, maybe in another template. Maybe you need that exact module again in some other template, in some other email. So what you can do is that if there is something which you want to save, you can save it as a fragment, which is basically you break it down to some fragments which you think can be reused later, and it can get creative, it can get extended. The whole idea is when you save it, you need to select the sections you want to fragment. So it needs to be a group of structures, and those structures should be adjacent to each other to enable that fragment. So you can create the fragment by selecting adjacent structures. It can be horizontal, vertical, like whatever you want to do. And once you select that and create it, you can always later on use it in the email. So in this case, for example, on the left snapshot, when I am saving it, I am naming that fragment as body, and I am also adding some description, so I have some idea on what this fragment is about. So this example is about a fragment where the text includes a lead token, and it's a general body content. But before it appears in the emails to be used in the dropdown, you need to make sure that you publish it. So once you create it, once you create it using these steps like selecting that, saving the fragment, selecting the structures, creating the fragments, it's going to appear within the fragments sections, which you can see just below the email within the Design Studio. It's called fragments. It's also labeled new, but you do need to publish it, because if you don't publish it, it won't appear as available section to be used. And on the right side, you can see it appears as body published, which I can simply drag drop to canvas, where I'm not using the basic steps of defining the entire structure, but simply using a fragment. And just a quick view that fragments are basically unique combinations of components which you think can be reused for your particular use case. And you can, imagine a lot of different fragments based on how you want to select the adjacent structures. Next, I want to talk a bit about the AI assistant. And so this is something which needs to be enabled by some governance option. Like there's an option in Marketo, but once you enable it, you get this button, the magic button, I would say. And this is a use case where I'm trying to apply it to subject line. And I used this subject line, how to use AI assistant in Designer. And when I click that, you get the right side options, wherein you can use the referenced content, which I selected. So basically, the assistant is going to use this exact subject line. And then you can either write your own prompt in the prompt field, or you can click on the library buttons icon just on the right side of the prompt field, and it will open up a prompt library, which will automatically pull off different prompts, which can transform your subject line into something more benefit oriented, humorous, maybe intriguing, whatnot. Like there are a lot of options you can go in here, and then you can basically generate the new versions. There is more a part of simply using prompts to transform the original content. You can also make it more nuanced. There is also something called text settings within the right side window. You can see these are basically a couple of options which define your content strategy, like how you want to write your content. So if you click on the text settings, these are the options you get on the left. Like you can select the buying group, you can select the journey stage, communication strategy, language is English for now. You can also select the tone. And essentially, there are many different values of each of these fields. On the right side, I have the drop down from communication strategy. So you may want to use a urgent communication strategy, or maybe exclusivity, or maybe educational. And on the side of buying group, you may want to target influencers versus others. So basically, it's more of having many attributes to define a prompt to guide the ultimate version, which you want to use to personalize using this AI assistant. And it will ultimately give you a couple of variations. In this case, I used the education communication strategy. On the left bottom side, you can see like I have text setting communication strategy. I selected the education in the options I was just going through here, and it came up with these ones. So my initial content was AI assistant, your new design buddy, which I got after the initial prompt. And another variations using the test settings are the ones which we can see on screen, which it's basically trying to make it more educational. And yeah, I think by that I will give it to Keja for taking it forward.
Thank you, Balkar. We've been talking about, or Balkar has been talking about different ways of being able to set guardrails and use specific content blocking. And I wanted to show you two different ways. if you create a structure and you add content pieces to that, you can, when you're building out your template, lock either an entire structure or individual content elements within that structure. That's the top section that you see here, where in the right rail you will, or the end user using that template will see that it's editable content only, so they will be alerted to the fact that they can't edit everything. But in this top screenshot, I've actually allowed the header text, but also the text block underneath that to still be editable so that somebody can edit the content. And you see that the contextual menu also pops up, so you can actually insert tokens and you can insert links, and you're still editing inside that canvas. Whereas if I take that structure, save it as a fragment, and add that fragment to the individual email, I'm a lot more restricted in what I can do. So when you're using a fragment that has editable areas, the only editing you can do, and it's a little bit small on the screen, but is on the right rail. So you can only type plain text. There's no contextual menu. You can put an HTML or a URL in there. You can replace your image source, but the level of editing is far more restricted. So with a fragment, the experience for the end user building out the email is more restricted and has a slightly different UX than when you lock content pieces. So depending on what the use case is of the content type that you are using, you can make different choices in how you want to put those guardrails in place. So if we go to the next slide, we've pretty much gone through most of the key features that are there at the moment. So I wanted to pay a little bit of attention to what should you do at the moment, because I've seen a lot of questions about features that are not quite there yet. But I think it's also a very powerful platform already. So I think what to do with the new email designer is very dependent on what your situation is. So the first slide is on early adopters. So if you're eager to sort of get stuck in, you are already on the Adobe identity management system, and you've got, for example, experiences or experiencing issues with your existing templates, and you really need to create some fixes there. If you have a small team of users that are used to actually adhering to brand guidelines without really stringent guidelines in place, you're not reliant on dynamic content or velocity too much, you can start using this new email designer straight away. Yes, there are a few little quirks and workarounds, but quite a few of them will be resolved quite quickly. So there is nothing stopping you from getting stuck in and working with it at the moment. The key thing is anybody you give access to the new email designer at the moment will be able to edit templates as well as update emails individually. So if you go to the next slide, there's also migration strategy that I've named the well prepared. Again, if you are already on the Adobe IMS, you want to get stuck in, but you've got that broader user base that really needs more guardrails and that you don't want editing your templates, I wouldn't go to a full deployment just yet, especially if you're very reliant on dynamic content and velocity. But you can already give selected users access so that you can start experimenting, maybe already building out your templates, and be ready for a full deployment when the features that you really need for your broader user base are being implemented. But if you go to the last of the 3 slides, you can also go for the wait and see approach. There is no urgency to go for a full out migration. Your existing templates will remain functional. There is no need to do anything at this stage. So if you're not migrated to Adobe Identity Management System, you can't use it just yet. But if you're happy with your current templates, you've got a lot of velocity and dynamic content going, don't stress. Look at how it develops and decide your own moment to switch. And again, when switching, there is backward compatibility coming really soon. So you don't have to do a full-blown migration in order to be able to use this. So what have we got on the next slide? Well, that's the new features that are coming up, and there were already quite a few questions about when can we expect what. And Tarun, if I'm lying, please jump in and correct me. But this is the timing that I've seen from Summit last week. Very soon, you'll be able to use the new emails also in default programs, event programs, and engagement programs. The only program type that's going to be a little bit later is the interactive webinar one. The separation of the permissions that not all users can also edit templates will also be coming soon. So that will make it a lot more workable for larger organizations with bigger user groups. Later in Q2, and I just see a question coming in that's very relevant to that, there will be brand themes where you can define a fixed set of font families, colors, weights, button colors, background colors, etc., and apply a full-fledged brand theme to an email or to a template. And those brand themes will also support custom fonts. That backward compatibility we've already talked about a little bit. That will also be introduced. I think I saw Tarun in the chat say that that's going to be in April already as well. You've got to get used to a few new terms. I've seen the question about dynamic content in the new email designer. It's going to be called conditional content, and that will be actually a more flexible way because it's not dependent on segmentations anymore. You can do conditional content based on filtering logic like you would in smart lists as well. And handlebar will be the replacement for velocity scripting. A/B testing will also be implemented, and in Q2 we're also expecting an integration with Gen Studio. And then that's not the end of it. I saw in two different presentations, Q3 or Q4, for an integration with Litmus. I also saw a question about testing on different devices. There is quite a bit better preview option in there already, but if you have a Litmus contract, you'll be able to do that full testing inside of the Marketo email as well, along with a spam assassin integration. And something that is quite cool, I think, there will also be approval workflows. So from Marketo, you will be able to build out your email and then send it out to a predefined team of people that can actually review it, provide feedback, and approve the final version, all within Marketo. And I think a really impressive feature is the image to HTML. I've included two screenshots that I've also shared on LinkedIn, and kudos to Tarun for being brave enough to try this one. You can take any Figma file, any image that you would want to use as a basis for your email, import it into the new designer, and it will translate that image into the structures and content for further editing. And literally from that the handwritten doodle on the left image, it took Tarun less than 2 minutes. I watched him do it to create that email on screen in the right hand image. So I can't wait to get my hands on that one. So let's see what we've got on the next slide. Yeah, we've got the best practices. I think it's important to, when you start thinking about using the new email designer and maybe creating a new email template based on that new email designer, it's important to have a look at how are my current templates performing, run them through Litmus or Email on Acid, see if there's any new issues with the new email client updates that are there, check for the best practices that you would want to integrate, get feedback from your users. Are there things that they are currently not entirely happy with? So get all of that input, evaluate what program types you're usually working with, dynamic content, velocity scripting, but also play around with the new designer. Familiarize yourself with the new UI, build out an example email, send it to yourself in different email clients, see how it works, see what the experience is, see how it renders in your inbox, and then based on all of that input, decide on where you want to be in that migration strategy. Do you want to jump straight in? Do you want to play around further and prepare for a migration once certain features are deployed, or do you want to wait and see? And also, next slide. I think when you do start using the new email designer, it makes sense with all of those options that you have for different levels of content blocking, creativity. I would be a big fan of creating one big master template where everything is unlocked. You can make all your edits there centrally, and from there create smaller versions tailored to specific use cases where you lock certain elements, replace particular structures with fragments, so that you give that end user the experience that makes it as easy as possible to work with the new emails. I'm having a look at some of the questions. Test emails we haven't even covered in the slide, so I'm going to pick that up here. When you're building out your email, you can actually, in a very similar way, send out a sample email, and it automatically will ask you for an example person in the database based on whose profile you'll be sending out the sample email. So that works much the same way as it does today. Also, on the tips and tricks, can you go to the next slide, please, Bakar? I think it's important to learn the new language, and it's not going to align one-on-one with the world that you know. Because yes, fragments are sort of the new snippets, but not quite. They've got a few benefits compared to snippets. There's one or two things that we've provided feedback on, but fragments can also be compared to modules that live independently and which give you flexibility. So snippets and modules and fragments are not exactly the same thing. So it's important to learn the language of the new designer, understand how the features are different. Pretty much all of the functionality is there, but it works slightly different. Similarly, the variables as such don't exist anymore, but the way you can do those customizations to fragments and do the very detail level content locking gives you pretty much the same effect. Again, you can think of fragments as modules, but the combination of a structure with different content elements, you can consider a module as well. It's not there one-on-one in exactly the same way, but the same functionality is there, but there's different ways to get there. So it gives you the flexibility far more than in the old designer to create something that your end users will be very happy to use. And great thing, there's no HTML coding required, but there's a lot of customization that you can do with margins and paddings, different styling options. So have a good look around how you can tweak that to exactly be how you want your emails to be. A couple of small things to bear in mind. Any email you build based on a template will not retain a link to that template anymore. So we were used to the fact that when a change to the template was made and it was not in an editable area, existing emails would be updated. As soon as a new email is created in the new designer, it loses its link to the original template. So changes to the template have no impact on the emails that were built based on that template. That's different from fragments because changes that are made to a fragment will actually update in all emails, except for literal text updates. And that's something that we're still looking at. Something that didn't make it to the slide, but I'm just thinking of is something that we're not used to. The autosave is gone. So you can actually exit your email or your template without saving the changes. So you do need to save, and after you've saved, you need to take a separate action to publish. So again, it's got benefits. Maybe for some people it's got drawbacks. It's slightly different. I think it's actually useful to be able to decide for yourself whether you want to keep the changes or not. Couple of good to knows: old emails and templates will keep working. There's no need to migrate, and it will be backward compatible within the next 1 or 2 months. There will be an import functionality, so you can actually translate your old email or your old template into the new code base as well. And as you've seen on the slide a little bit back, new features will be deployed over the next month. It will be gradual, so have a look at what your minimum requirements are and what for you the moment is that using the new experience is going to be the optimal timing. Also mentioned already, anybody you give permission to use the new email designer right now will be able to create an email, but will also be able to create or edit an existing template. So I think that is one of the drawbacks for larger organizations where governance is quite important. And it's been mentioned a couple of times, the new email designer is only available when you have migrated to Adobe Identity Management. So if you want to start using it and you're not sure about what the status is on your migration, you can always ask your customer success manager for when you're expected to do that migration. Finally, we've got a couple of relevant resources for you. Actually, this whole feature is already pretty well documented on the Experience League. So there's a link there that will bring you straight there. It's also important to keep an eye on the release notes because the features that are going to be released next are going to be clearly highlighted there as well. I've written a community blog post about the new authoring experience, which covers a lot of what we've been talking about here as well. Balkar has done a really great LinkedIn post. Tarun last week did a great breakout session that you can watch the recording of from Summit. And finally, when you are going to migrate to Adobe Identity, there's also some resources there about how that process works. So what have we got in terms of questions that we haven't covered yet?
You guys have done a great job answering in chat. And while you go, there's a few remaining questions. I think there's still a little bit of confusion around snippets versus fragments. So if you guys could kind of detail those a little bit more and the differences. And there's been a few questions around if fragments will be draggable and you'll be able to order and rearrange by dragging and dropping.
Yes, you will. And I think that actually makes the fragments really powerful because you can take a full width structure fragment or full width structure, maybe even a combination of two structures, save that as a fragment, and you can drag that anywhere inside a new structure, even a half-width column or even smaller. So you can put multiple of those side by side. So I think fragments are really cool and scalable in that sense. And you can make those fragments customizable. And I think that's a big difference with the snippets. You can, for a fragment, say this particular text box is actually editable by the end user. So if you look at a common use case for snippets, it would be for your email footer. But right now you see email footers where you have different versions if you have different legal entities in your organization, so that the company name and address details and legal information can be updated. You can actually do that now with one fragment and make that specific section editable, so that in each email you can make sure that you get your local version of the of those address details. So fragments are more flexible in snippets that way, that you can make certain areas editable, and you can really keep that structure locked in place and make very specific parts editable. One thing that we've come across is that if you make a change in the text in the fragment, so the not editable parts, that doesn't automatically propagate. But Tarun and I have already had a little conversation about that. We're going to be looking into fixing that.
And from within the WYSIWYG, when we'll be able to customize HTML for structure and contents?
Oh, that's one for you, Tarun. I'm not sure whether that is on the roadmap, because I know you can insert HTML as a content element, but editing the actual HTML of the structure and the content blocks, not sure whether that's on the radar.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes, so that's the code editor for you, right? And that is something that we are planning in Q2 itself. So when I say Q2, it is March, April, May, right? And we'll be bringing the code editor for you, so that you can make those changes directly into the code editor.
And will the template syntax be made available for customizing templates?
I didn't completely hear you well there.
Will the template syntax be made available for customizing templates?
I think that's similar to the previous question, right, Tarun? It's being able to work on the HTML for the structures and the content blocks.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, going through the most latest ones that have come in. How can you organize fragments for users?
Well, I think similar to the emails I saw Tarun answer, that it will be possible to organize emails in folders. I think the same will apply to fragments as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when do you anticipate Adobe's help documentation will be updated to reflect the new email designer UI?
As I said, I think the Experience League pages, the one that I put in the resources page, that's doing a pretty good job with keeping up to date on the latest changes.
Yeah, and the more we add up in every release, you will see the Experience League documentations to be updated accordingly.
And are we able to set dynamic content based on user attributes and behaviors, such as job titles or content engagement on the website?
Yep. Behavior, well, you'll be able to use the same sort of filters as you would in smart lists. So would that also include activity filters, Tarun?
Not as
Or
of
only
now,
lead?
but yeah, I mean we are definitely working on it. But for now, you will be able to use all the person, company, all the attributes, right?
Okay. And how can we ensure accessibility compliant HTML? I believe it's safe to assume that VML is now out the window. No need to do VML coding to ensure old Outlook compatibility.
Yeah, I think we will keep on working on enhancing with new Outlook versions. But for now, the current email and the email template that gets built, that's kind of compatible with multiple latest Outlook versions as well as other email clients as well. So that and it's our customer community who have tested it out as well. Uh, at one of the Marketo jams did run some litmus tests, and we kind of came out with flying colors. So we are sorted on that side, but we'll keep on enhancing as more and more new Outlook versions and other email client versions come out.
Okay. And what is the difference between link tracking with and without Marketo token?
I'm not too sure about that one because without Marketo token, I think that that's always going to be included when you do tracking. No token,
Yes.
so no redirect is no tracking, right?
Yep. That stays the same.
Okay.
No change there. Yeah.
And a few more snippet versus fragment questions. When you save a fragment, can you save it as a snippet basically? And is that how snippet functionality translates, by saving the snippet type, static editable text or snippet?
Well, you don't save it as a snippet. You save it as a fragment, and a fragment is similar to a snippet, but not entirely the same. And that's exactly sort of the mindset shift that you need to make. It's going to be slightly different. So it's important to familiarize yourself with it, create a fragment, save it, work with it, play with the locking, or actually the other way around with fragments, the customization options there are, and uh, uh, decide on, compared to the content blocking that you do in structures, what the best way is of doing it. It's all there. It just works slightly different.
Somebody, Kara mentioned a snippet versus fragment chart would be helpful. That sounds like a great champion blog opportunity, maybe more detailed snippets versus fragments with a chart.
That's an interesting challenge. Yep.
I like that idea, Kara. Okay, a few more we can probably get to. Regarding the new dynamic content, can we use program statuses?
Can we use? I didn't get that very last bit, Jenny.
Can we use program statuses regarding the new dynamic content? And maybe, probably you might need a little more information on how they want to use those.
Well, for now, I would say similar to the activities, probably not. I would say for now, think about lead and company field values that you can use with most likely extension later.
Okay. And will documentation be made available on how to code custom templates? I'd like to create a boilerplate that already contains our org's branding and styling. So how will that documentation be made available?
Well, that's actually the brand themes that are going to be introduced. The branding and styling, color, sizes, weights, fonts, etc. That will be included in your themes, so you can set up and even import entire style sets and save them as themes, so that in your email you can switch quite easily between one theme and the other to change the branding completely consistently.
Okay. And sometimes clients provide us with HTML to import into a blank email. In the future, are we still going to be able to import this into our programs, or eventually will the ability to add custom HTML be removed?
As Balkar showed in one of his slides, one of the options when you start creating your email is still to simply import HTML, and there's even an AI assistant that will sort of help in translating that into the new designer, so that you can keep working from there. But there is a full import function.
Yeah. And then one last question, we're at time. When you migrate to IMS, what is the timeline for getting users migrated? We just started. and our admins have been migrated, but none of the others.
Usually, I saw that question and it was less than 75 users instance, I think I remember from the question.
Yes.
So if you're less than 75 users and you don't have single sign-on, Adobe will do it for you. And that's usually one moment in time where it just is done in bulk fairly quickly after the migration. If your admins are already migrated, migration has started, it will be at least within 30 days, but I think, Tarun, do you know off the top of your head whether in that sort of auto migration scenario you can select the date for the other users? I'd have to
Sorry,
look that up.
Katya, can you retell me what's the voice was
Oh,
breaking for me? Yeah. Can you tell
so
me?
IMS migration with auto migration. So not self-service migration, but auto migration. Do you have, as a product admin, do you have any control over when the users are migrated, or is that entirely Adobe managed?
Yeah, so there, in IMS there are two things, right? So one is the product migration and one is the user migration. I think from a product migration we'll do it automatically from our side, but I think from an admin perspective you will need to kind of tell us that, hey, these are the users that I would want them to be on IMS. So that is a control thing from the admin perspective.
That's the self-service version, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
I can look that up and come back to that for auto migration. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I can look it up. For that person, if you sort of ping me on LinkedIn and remind me of the question, I'll look it up and get back to you.
And we are at time. Thanks everyone for attending today. And like Katja said, if you have other questions, everyone's happy to help. Reach out to us in the community, LinkedIn. And thanks so much, Katja, Balfour, and Tarun for all your great question answering and presentation today.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.